I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. Worship Your holy name. The sun comes up. It's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul.
So hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this session of Follow Your Faith. And beside me on my right are Linda and Tom Fleming, who are going to be talking to us a lot today about their trip to the Holy Land and our trying to grasp a hold of Jesus as he walked through that world 2,000 years ago. So let's begin with a prayer, as we always do, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Amen. Heavenly Father, you sent your Son, who became one of us, not a Superman, not part man, but a completely total, full human being who was one of us and walked amongst us and really was one of us and struggled with the same issues, the same difficulties, the same challenges that we have day in and day out, except he always, always did your will in the midst of all of that. So bless us as we go on this journey today, and also next week as well, and help us to try to, in our imagination or heart, to consider what it'd be like to have been back there, but most especially today to just ponder Jesus back there in that time, what that must have been like for this God to walk the face of the earth. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And Marty, I want to turn everything over to you. And I just want to shout out to Ann, who was with us.
Ann DiFrancesco is back in the house.
And she was the original moderator back over there, way back in the beginning with all that. So,
well, you took all my opening lines, so now I'm not really sure what I'm going to say because you told me to introduce them, and then you did. All right, but I do want to start. Why did you decide to go? I mean, it's not like you're going down the street. It's not like it's a trip to Pittsburgh. How long was the flight?
10, 11 hours.
Yeah. So why go? What motivated? Yeah. Look forward. Don't look at me. What motivated you? Why'd you go?
Go ahead, Linda.
We had talked about going to the Holy Land for a little while, and last year, Rick Messina, now Deacon Rick, went with a group from Johnstown, and I asked him to tell me about his journey. And he did, and he was on fire, and he said it improved his prayer life, and that it was so fulfilling and enriching. So I went home that day, and I said, we have to stop putting this off. And then I talked to my colleague who was also interested in going, and so the four of us started looking for trips that were available sooner rather than later.
So we got on a few waiting lists with some of the tours that we were familiar with, Jeff Cavins and
cool.
Father Dave
Pavonka from Franciscan and Dr. Edward Sri. And the waiting list had us kind of like a year or two out. But Dr. Sri opened up a trip in January. He typically takes the pilgrimages in, I think, November. And because of COVID, a lot of things were put on hold. So he opened up another trip, and we were able to get on that list. And there were about 40 of us.
Yeah,
Tom, you said, or Linda said at the beginning, that you were hesitant when you ever talked about it, not necessarily this time, but in talking about it, right. You were hesitant to go over there because of the security concerns. And I hear that a lot. Obviously it was not enough to deter you from going, but were you on edge when you got there, or had you accepted? And what was it like for you?
I think, I came to terms with that it was pretty safe in talking with people and talking with Rick and some other folks who had gone recently. So, I was concerned about just the security. Americans aren't very well liked. People teased and said, you should go over there and wear a Canadian T-shirt. No one's upset with the Canadians.
They can smell us from a distance.
Well, we have our ways.
Yeah.
So, I was concerned because of all the things you see. But what we did find out, and we didn't feel with any security concerns when we were there. Of course, there was a strong security presence, but we did feel safe, and obviously it all worked out, and we kind of threaded the needle, Linda says, because there was some unrest while we were there, kind of at the end internally, and then there was some unrest, and there were some incidents after we got back home. So, we hit it at a very good time.
Great.
Now the movie, folks. We came here to see your slideshow. So you're up.
Okay. All right. I liked how you said at Mass this morning, I take a few pictures.
A few.
Yeah.
She's taking a picture or two.
If you had
know?
have seen her Facebook page,
Yeah.
that few pictures is
Yeah.
so funny because
Yeah.
Well, if you've
How
seen my
many
Facebook
did you
page, then
take?
you've seen the slideshow.
how many did you take?
Yeah.
How many hundred? 1,000?
About 2,000, I
Yeah.
think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And many
Where
of
do
them
you
were
see how
Well,
many
we're not
of
going
the-
to see all of them.
We'll see the first 1,000 this evening. You have to stay tuned next
I
week
can't
for the
talk that
second,
fast.
for the second 1,000.
Okay. So we're just going to start with one little question. Tom and I did this presentation or a similar one for the grade school students. So we started out with what is a pilgrim, because we were on a pilgrimage. And so they kind of laughed when I said, we're the pilgrims. And of course, you probably know that a pilgrim is someone who journeys to a sacred place for religious reasons. So, and I did want to just mention, Tom and I have been to Rome twice, and both trips were wonderful and enriching. But I remember coming home from both of them and sort of wondering why I wasn't more spiritually uplifted. And now I know, because it was a tour, not a pilgrimage. So with the pilgrimage, we went from, if you're not familiar with the geography, this is where we went to
Pittsburgh to Newark, and then Newark directly over to Tel Aviv.
Yeah. And this is our group of pilgrims. There were about 40, 45 of us, and we made some
Where
wonderful
are you in
friends.
that picture?
We are right in the middle on,
see it. I
I'm
see
looking
it.
at
I
it
see
on
it.
the
Left.
left.
I see it.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sri is in the front. And it was interesting. He had a son with him on his trip. He has quite a few children. But it was the first time that one of his children
Yes.
went on one of the trips. So he was one of the photographers and, documented the trip for their website as well. And in fact, he did a few podcasts. He recorded some podcasts
While
at some
we
of
were
the
over there.
locations we were
Yeah.
there. So, yeah.
So we were on a pilgrimage. So that includes time to pray. And so we'll talk about some of these scenes in a little more detail. We had time to pray at the Western Wall. We'll talk about that next week because that was a really unbelievable experience. We had time to study. Every day we had a Bible, more than one Bible teaching from Dr. Sri. And if anybody's done any of his classes, which we had, he's an amazing theologian. And he just brings it down to a level that you can understand, makes it very real. So every day we heard Bible teachings from him. We had a Jewish tour guide who was amazingly informative. And so he would tell us about the historical information about the sites that we were visiting. So we studied all day long. And because of Rick's tips, I took a journal and I journaled and took notes about everything that helped me remember.
Can I just say real quickly, folks, if you want to ask any questions of Linda or Tom as they go, please feel free to do that because Ann's standby over there. And otherwise, we're going to be keeping going through all this. So if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in there, okay?
Okay. So we had time to grow in our faith. We'll talk about the two pictures on the left. We renewed our baptismal promises in the Jordan River. And on the right, we were renewing our wedding vows with about 30 other people.
Cana.
In Cana. Yeah.
Cool.
And then we made so many friends. Everybody on the trip was just wonderful. And everybody was there for the same reason. They wanted to grow in faith. So we're all connected on Facebook now. And
Was it cold?
I was just going to say,
It was-
we have this vision of the Holy Land
yeah,
as being
yeah,
a hot place,
yeah.
but you guys are all bundled up.
it was like a
fall.
crisp fall day.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cool in the
Okay.
evening.
Yeah.
It was in the 60s or 70s during the day and sunny, but it did get a
It
little
got
chilly.
warmer through the week.
Well, and
Yeah.
and the picture on the right was at the Sea of Galilee the last night, and in fact, one of the priests from Dr. Sri's parish traveled along with us, along with his mother, and that evening he heard confessions, and people shared stories around the fire. But that was the last evening
On the Sea of
Sea of
Galilee.
Galilee before
Yeah.
journeying to Jerusalem the next day.
Yeah, his name was Father Matt Hartley. He was from St. Thomas More in Centennial, Colorado. Young guy, excellent homilist. My wrap-up thought tonight is from him. I hope we get that far. Yeah, great guy. And then, of course, we were walking in Jesus's footsteps. So that's what makes it a pilgrimage. That's what is different from just a regular tour that you might take with a tour guide. So,
that's what we want to do, walk in Jesus' footsteps here.
Yeah. So the first place we're going to talk about is actually an Old Testament story. So this won't be walking in Jesus's footsteps, but the first place we went, and I have the fewest notes on this because I was totally jet lagged, and I did not listen to them when they said, don't close your eyes on the bus in between stops because it'll ruin your sleep. It didn't ruin my sleep, but I was really tired that day. But we went to Mount Carmel and the Jezreel Valley, and there is just a beautiful little church up at the top of the hill, and it's surrounded by these lovely gardens, and there's a little chapel there. And so this is where in 1 Kings chapter 18, Elijah defeated the false prophets of Baal. You know, he had that kind of throwdown with their 450 prophets, and he said, you get a bull, I'll get a bull, we're going to cut it up, put it on the wood, and whoever can command their God to catch it on fire is who we should follow. And of course, the Baal prophets couldn't do it, and Elijah even had the people throw like 12 jugs of water on top of it, and God came through, caught it on fire. So this is where that happened. And I think the next picture
Beautiful
is
views.
the Jezreel
Mount
Valley.
Carmel is a beautiful area.
Yeah,
Beautiful area.
yeah. And it's expansive. I mean, you can see in all directions. So that was pretty cool, even though I was kind of tired. So, all right. So I wanted to have this map. I'm going to, I'm an attorney by trade, so I have to give a disclaimer that I tried to do this in chronological order. I think it's a little bit out of order, but I sort of wanted to do kind of his, public ministry in that order. So I thought this map might help from Nazareth on up through Cana and then on up to the Sea of Galilee.
How far would you say, Linda and Tom, from Nazareth to, let's say, Mount of Beatitudes? How far would you say it is? Miles, maybe.
I was sleeping.
Yeah. Everything was by bus, and everything would seem like it wasn't a very far journey. So
he's just walking through
right.
all this.
He's walking. That's true.
Yeah, he's walking this.
Yeah.
And I know when we were staying on the Sea of Galilee, so I think the Mount of Beatitudes was on the opposite side from.
That's correct.
We walked.
Yes.
We drove around it.
Yes, we drove around.
So I will say that having been there, everything's closer together than I thought it was.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Especially when you're in Jerusalem and you're talking about the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, you realize how close everything is.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the Church of the Annunciation, and I say it's built over Mary's childhood home. One of the things that we learned was that Saint Helena was really good at wanting to restore and preserve holy places. And so whenever she would find evidence, or their people, Constantine's people would find evidence that there was a holy place, they would build a church over it. And so that's what they did with the Annunciation. This was built over Mary's childhood home, where the angel Gabriel appeared to her. This is the church, and it's really quite stunning. It's a huge basilica, and this is Dr. Sri did one of his podcasts from there, if I recall correctly, and they have this, and that's the back view. They have this courtyard, so of course everything is Mary focused, and in the courtyard, if you can see in the back there's about 5 different pictures of Mary. They're almost all mosaics. And basically what they did was have every country commission their best version of Mary. So there are these beautiful mosaics everywhere.
Our Mother of Sorrows in the middle of that right there. That second one from our left. It looks like Our Mother of Sorrows.
Yes. Yeah, I think you're right. And then I thought these two were very pretty. The one on the left is from the United States. Some people did not enjoy the modernism of that. I thought it was really cool. I liked it. And the one to the right is from Slovenia. I probably have 20 pictures just of the gallery of the Madonnas. Yeah, they were really beautiful. And then this is inside. And Dr. Sri was telling us how remarkable it was that there were no lines anywhere.
I was just going to ask you that. In the pictures we've seen so far, there haven't been any people.
Yeah.
And I mean, every image I've ever seen of the Holy Land is like there's people everywhere.
Yeah.
Was it just the time of year that you think you went, or
He attributed it to the time of the year.
okay?
Yeah.
He really
Because
did.
like you had a really great view because there was nobody there.
Yeah. The other thing that they did, which I thought was wonderful, we had a schedule. So we thought we knew where we were going every day. But what we didn't know until the very end was that every day they would assess whether we should go there or something else, depending on the length of the lines. So they were actually pulling us off the schedule and doing things out of order because it wasn't busy where we were planning to go.
And that church is spectacular
Yeah.
looking. I don't remember any of that. That is spectacular.
And it's so well
And
maintained.
sometimes they have great taste. Sometimes our
Yeah.
churches lack a little
Right.
taste.
Right.
They seem to,
Yeah, but it was really stunning, and there were monks in the lower level chapel doing probably liturgy of the hours or something. It wasn't a mass, but it was really beautiful. And the paintings everywhere. How about it? The paintings were just spectacular.
Even the artistry on the floors
Yes.
and everything, just
Yeah.
everywhere you look.
So in back of the Church of the Annunciation is the Church of St. Joseph. And this was either the carpentry shop of Joseph or his house. And if it was his house, then it would have been Jesus's childhood home. So again, this was built over that site. And then in the, went too fast. In the lower level, there are some crypts and a water pit, more mosaics like this one, caves, and some barns from ancient Nazareth. And then this was a nice statue out in the courtyard. Next, we'll talk about the Church of the Visitation, which is the birthplace of John the Baptist and obviously the site of Mary's visit to Elizabeth that we read about in Luke. Again, this was another beautiful church, a little older, and there's a beautiful statue of Mary and Elizabeth.
You want to point out on the right how every country had in their language.
Yes, the Magnificat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All along that wall
All
there.
on that wall, yeah.
I have a picture, which I didn't include just because I kind of went picture happy, but there's one of the English version of it, I think, at home.
I think a statue of both of them being pregnant is kind of interesting there too,
Yeah. All right, Steve, my clicker isn't working anymore. There we go. And this is just one of the beautiful frescoes on the wall. Again, a depiction of Mary and Elizabeth talking. And this, I believe, is the Zechariah Chapel. So there is a separate chapel, and we had mass there.
Yes.
Where that's dedicated to Elizabeth's husband, Zechariah, and his story is that when the angel Gabriel told him that he and Elizabeth would have a child, he basically scoffed at it because they were too old, and because of his lack of faith, he became mute, and he was mute for I think about 5 months, and then Afterwards, when everyone thought they would name the baby Zechariah after him, he asked for a tablet, and he said, "We'll name the baby John." And because of his great faith, then he got his voice back. So this chapel is dedicated to Zechariah. This was a beautiful fresco up high over the organ pipes that I thought was really stunning. So there's going to be 2 sites here in Bethlehem that we went to that were really wonderful. They're kind of out of order. I probably should have done the church and the Nativity first. But so the Shepherd's Fields are, and we learned that it wasn't really a manger, that it was more of a cave where Jesus was born. And in fact, the shepherds would...
A manger is what he was laid in.
Right, yeah. So this is the Shepherd's Field Church, which is designed to look like a shepherd's tent. And if you see the big dome there, I'll show you an inside picture in a few seconds. That's designed to look like a starry night. And then over the front door of the chapel is an angel.
Now, just very quickly, now we've moved from Nazareth down to Bethlehem, probably about 60 miles. Maybe we're down south now, where we're right. Bethlehem is very close to Jerusalem, just south of Jerusalem, and where Mary went to visitation, that's closer to Jerusalem, maybe to the north of Jerusalem a little bit. But now we're in the south because Jesus was born in the south, and there are many people that claim that Joseph had relatives there. That's why he was there, and so it was a relative's home in this cave where the animals were, is where he was born and all of that. And so we just changed geography a little bit.
Yeah. So this site is maintained by the Franciscans, so it is a Roman Catholic site. And let's see. All right. So here's the inside of that chapel, designed to look like a starry night. And then if you can see in between the arches, you can just barely see, there are 3 frescoes. You can see the one in the middle the most. So here's a close-up of these 3 frescoes. And so they tell the story of the shepherds on the night Christ was born. So the one and in each one you can see the light coming down from the heavens. So the one in the top left is the angels announcing to the shepherds that Christ was born. The one on the top right is the shepherds visiting the newborn king, and then the one on the bottom is the shepherds celebrating Jesus's birth with jubilation. And they were really stunning. I have to say, I think the pictures don't do them justice. The colors are vibrant, and it's really beautiful. So then there's a little side chapel, and this is the entrance to a cave where the shepherds would have been keeping watch over their flocks. And then inside, so you can tell it's a cave, they have an altar set up for public worship. Yeah.
See that picture of Mary there on the right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's the image of Mary, that Schoenstatt movement that I belonged to in Germany for the longest time. And that's their image right off there to the right. Interesting.
Okay, so then we went to the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, located on the West Bank in occupied Palestinian territories. You should tell them about how different it was in Bethlehem and what we had to do.
Yeah, quite the Jewish tour guide wasn't permitted to give the tours in Bethlehem, so it was one of the Palestinian employed tour guides came onto the bus, and they said oftentimes the soldiers will come in on the buses and just kind of pass through, and we didn't have any kind of security checks there, but you knew that you were kind of in in a territory that was, different than what we had been used to.
This is
beginning of the trip.
Palestinian territory.
Palestinian
Yeah.
occupied, yeah.
Yes, it was just a little different.
And did they say that there was the percentage of Christians living in Bethlehem?
Oh, it's low. I forget what it was, but he said,
Well, the Christians
Less
are
than
almost
5%.
non-existent,
Yes.
Right.
in
Yeah.
Israel and Palestine now. There's a lot of Palestinian Christians in my day back there. There was, but they've admitted back then it's not going to be many soon
Yeah.
because once the Muslims moved in, they had to sort of move out.
Right.
yeah. In fact, Dr. Sri was really good about patronizing all the Catholic
The Christian.
Christian
Yeah.
souvenir shops.
Yeah.
And we went to a beautiful one in Bethlehem.
Yeah. It was the only, I think the only Christian
Yeah.
owned souvenir store in
Yeah.
Bethlehem.
So, Marty, this was the day that was the busiest for us because we were there January 18th and it was Armenian Christmas Eve.
Oh,
So it was like a big day and all these people.
so there were more people there that
yes.
day.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were all lined up to see all these dignitaries. So,
And they were televising it live.
yes.
Too. So there
Yeah.
was
See you guys that you were the
No,
dignitaries?
just
Oh,
these, no.
Is that van behind there? Is that for television?
yes,
Yeah.
and that
okay.
whole
Yeah.
railing is to keep the the people kind of at a distance from the dignitaries who were coming in for mass.
Okay.
So this church is basically run by three sects: the Armenians, the Greek Orthodox, and the Catholics. And apparently, they peacefully coexist. But that day, it was all about the Armenians, and we had the longest wait here, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Because anybody but the Armenians had to wait in line, and then when someone would come in to see one of the holy sites, they would move them ahead. And finally, our Palestinian tour guide had enough of that, and he basically just pushed us down the stairs to the Nativity of the Grotto of the Nativity and the Grotto of the Manger, and got us in. But I know we waited a couple hours, and that was the only time all week that we really had problems waiting. So, have you heard about the Door of Humility? So this is a 5-foot door to enter it's less than 5 feet. And so the picture on the left is the outside going in, and the picture on the right is coming into the church. And it's representative of how we have to, so you have to scrunch down. If you're someone like me who's about 5'8", you have to scrunch down to get into the door. And it's representative of how we have to humble ourselves before God.
Is it true that could you stand upright in the grotto?
We were
Yeah,
It's
I don't remember
small.
being able to stand
Yeah.
upright
Yeah.
in the grotto. I can't remember on that.
One of the ladies on our trip said her husband wouldn't come on the trip because he didn't think he could. He was like 6'5", and he didn't think he could fit through the Door of Humility. I think she was joking a little bit, but that was kind of cool. And these are the mosaics on the walls were just restored in 2015 to 2016. So in the Armenian and I think it was the Greek Orthodox part of it, it's very ornate. And you'll see,
Look, yeah.
yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, and this has a word. I wrote it down because it's the chancel. It's the part of the church near the altar reserved for the clergy and choir. And it has a gilded screen with icons. And so this is the area where we were waiting. And it was just fascinating to watch many of the people who were wearing, the garb of what appeared to be priests,
Or
coming
monks.
and going, chatting. So we had a lot of time to really look at this part of the.
Is that a chandelier in the front of that?
It sure looks
Yeah.
like it, yeah.
Yes.
And it was everything was just so ornate. And
Yeah, really. Is that
several places
gold?
we went, several places we went, they had those thin hanging lights with the balls on them. It was just spectacular. All the gold was just amazing to me. And here's a golden crucifix too. So everything was just ornate, spectacular, very well maintained. And then of course there's
I
a
couldn't
lot
have
of
claimed the same when I was there. That I didn't find that at all. So I'm glad you guys saw that.
yeah. Well, and I know they restored the mosaics in 2015.
The place we went was just junky.
Oh,
Junky.
what a shame. Yeah. So lots of icons.
Yes, sure.
So, and that's Mary and Jesus on the right. And so this is the grotto of the Nativity. So, and these are the small rooms. So you wait a long time and you go down some steps, and then you go into these little rooms, and usually they would, have 3 at a time. And you can just see on the left side of that photo, there's a monk standing there, or maybe an Armenian priest or something. So you can see his little tennis shoe sticking out of his black robe. And they would, if you spent too much time, they would usher you out just so that they could move the people.
So what is going on?
So there's a silver star underneath that altar, which represents the place where Jesus was born. So this is called the Grotto of the Nativity. So most of us they told us ahead of time, you can kneel and touch the star. We put our rosaries on it. Lots of people would bend down and kiss it. This is Tara from our group, and she just happened to be in front of me, and I wanted to get a picture of.
So how much time do you have individually?
Seconds.
Seconds. They're moving you pretty quick.
Yes.
Yeah. But that was really a very neat place. And then a little bit lower is this grotto of the manger. So this is where, the manger supposedly was. And I did write down this quote from St. Jerome. So it's ornate, and basically they used to have.
He lived there.
He did, yeah. I should have included some pictures, because underneath they have his cave, call it, where he was translating the Bible. So originally, I guess it was more of a wooden manger, and then they put this silver manger in there and all the ornate fabrics. And St. Jerome said he didn't approve. He said, if I could only see that manger in which the Lord lay, now, as if to honor the Christ, we have removed the poor one and placed there a silver one. However, for me, the one which was removed is more precious.
That's in the 4th century.
Yeah. So, I guess, some could argue that it's befitting of what it represents, but
it's like Nelson's homily today about the gold flower and the lunchbox for Jesus. We have a hard time with Jesus, who comes to us in ordinary bread. We have to always have to sort of jazz it up.
The monstrance has to be gold.
Yeah, we have a hard time with that, believing it actually was one of us.
But right or wrong, it was really spectacular to be there, and just to. Everywhere we went, wouldn't you say, just imagining what happened on that hallowed ground was pretty neat. And so then the Catholic part of the church is St. Catherine, which is, you can stay inside. And this looked more like, your typical Catholic church. And this is under
Who was that?
Hieronymus?
That's Jerome.
Is that Jerome? Yeah.
Because of the skull there.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
It's below St. Catherine's where his caves were. I can't remember. I don't think I put a picture in there, but I should have. So this is then, so on the left side of the screen is the church we just came out of, and that's the Greek Orthodox Armenian side. But looking straight into the picture, like in the direction of the white car, this is Manger Square in Bethlehem. And this is at the end of the Armenian, whatever was happening, because all of the people were now filing out of the church. So that's why there's so many people there in the square. And we got to walk across the square to have lunch. And so we were kind of in the throngs of people, but it was a beautiful sunny day. And it was really just kind of a buzz because of the holiday. So
is that a mosque straight ahead?
Yes,
probably.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Like
Do you want to tell them about the prayers and everything in the mosque?
You would hear the loudspeakers, the call to prayer.
Sure.
Yeah, everywhere you went.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how
Very loud.
how the Christians and the Muslims sort of peacefully coexist with their rituals. And then I included this picture because
It was Christmas.
it was Christmas. Yeah. And so I don't know whether they keep that up all year round.
I don't know. You think it might,
I don't know that. But
And there were people from all over the country, and there were a couple pilgrims from the Philippines that joined us.
yeah.
So some people came to Jerusalem from, all over, but most of the folks from our trip were from Kansas and
Yeah, the
Texas
Midwest
and Midwest and
and the South.
Colorado.
And not one person is asking a single question during all this. They must be riveted to
They're
this.
either
what you're
bored
doing.
or
It's looking right at it. So that's good. That's good.
Okay.
Keep it rolling.
All right. So this was the wall that Israel built to basically keep out the so this is from the Palestinian side,
It's like a prison on the one right.
Yeah. And and it was interesting because I was out there taking pictures of the wall, and a man approached me and he said, "Do you see that artwork?" Oops. He said, "Do you see that artwork there?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's my artwork." And he promptly produced a card that had a picture of the artwork from the wall. And then I realized he was trying to get money as a starving artist. So I gave him $5 or something. I don't know. But yeah, it was just unusual, don't you think?
Yeah.
Being in Bethlehem and it being
The one with what's that death image in the center of that right there? Is that what that is? Or is that look like that? You see the person? It's like a sickle. Is that a sickle he's holding?
It's either a sickle or a flag. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, so that was interesting. So we did go to the Jordan River where John baptized Jesus. Why don't you talk about this?
Well, just we expected a river, like when we think of you go to Pittsburgh and you see or the Mississippi or the Ohio River, it's a creek and it's dirty and murky, and on the other side is I think the Jordanian occupied. So there were Jordanian soldiers with machine guns on that side, and there were Israeli soldiers with machine guns on.
See, there were tanks
side.
Whenever I was there. That's where the tanks.
Yeah.
And almost they're so narrow you can their muzzles that almost touched each other. It's kind of funny, but anyway.
Yeah.
So we did see some folks being baptized in this area.
They sell like white
robes,
t-shirt type material dresses for kids and adults. So.
And of course bottles, so you can fill up your water from
we brought
the
some
River
water
Jordan,
back.
which we did.
Yeah. We did renew our baptismal promises. This is Father Matt that I talked about before. And in the back of the picture with Tom, you can see some of the people on the Jordanian side. Right. But the water was cold and the bottom was slimy and it wasn't anything what I expected.
Yeah, and there was a little platform that we're standing on, but it didn't appear that the river itself was very deep.
Yeah. But
I think it's wider and clearer up north, but around where you guys were down the south part, that was pretty murky. It was a little deeper there actually than.
Yeah, but it was still. I'm so glad we did it. It was pretty cool.
Yes.
So, whoops. Okay, so next is Cana, site of Jesus's first miracle.
Would you believe they sell wine at the souvenir shops?
Maybe.
Bottle of wine.
That's great. That's great. Sure.
Our friends bought some.
We have some too.
Did you drink it there, or did you guys bring some back?
I didn't, but I never asked them if it was any good.
Yeah.
But
I'd have imbibed, I think, a little bit of that myself.
I probably should have. But it's a pretty little church, and I'm sure it's lovely at night because it looks like wires, but those are actually lights. Over the courtyard that light up. And again, this is one of those places that's built over what they believe to be the ruins. So then you can go kind of in the back area and see, what the original site was.
What is that site? What are we looking at?
Cana.
That's the hall where the wedding was, or they didn't
so.
tell you?
I think so. Yeah.
Water to wine.
And this is us. And again, this was day one. We're both really tired, and it was the end of the day. So
you look uninterested
I
there.
I wanted to apologize. I
That's like our wedding day, Father. Just brought back memories.
Wow. You're on your own, brother.
I'll pay for that when I get home.
So there were a lot of us that renewed our vows. So that was again it was and it was after a mass, so we had mass every day. And then out in the courtyard behind the church is this beautiful stone wall, and it has the whole verse from John inscribed in it. So, and you can see at the end it says, and his disciples believed in him, just because
It's in English.
It's in English, yeah. So that's John chapter 2. So, all right, so next we'll talk about Mount Tabor and the site of the Transfiguration that we read about in Matthew. So this is the church built over the site where Jesus took Peter and James's brother John, and led them up the mountain, and then he was transfigured before them. And this church was really stunning. We had Mass in this chapel. If you remember, when I was going through the time to pray, I had a picture of us having Mass in this chapel, and it was really, really beautiful. And I think the next picture, shows these beautiful paintings of angels in the arcs.
It has some style, didn't it?
Yeah. And so many of these churches, they are used to pilgrims coming in with groups and having masses. So many of them are set up with side chapels like this one. And, as soon as we moved out, another group came in.
And we had a time designated, so it was all prearranged. So we knew we had to be at a certain church or a certain chapel at a certain time.
Was there a friar that sort of stayed there all the time and took care of things with all that? Yeah.
So
whenever we do the Good Friday, the collection for the Holy Land, that's what it goes to. That's the things the Franciscans themselves actually are custodians of.
Okay.
And we saw a few of those sites where the Franciscans monitored and maintained the sites.
Yeah. So one of the days, I think maybe the second day we were there, we were able to go to the Magdala excavations late in the day. So this was kind of at nighttime. So Migdal is the name of the town now, which used to be Magdala, which is where Mary Magdalene was from. And so they have this really, we understand, posh and expensive hotel that they built there. And so in 2009, they were talking about building a guest house. And I guess they have this organization called the Israel Antiquities Authority. And they have to do a test to make sure, the guest house wasn't going to be built over these ruins, any more ruins. And lo and behold, they found these ruins, basically the city. They found so they found these walkways and mosaics built into the stone. And I'm not sure the one in the upper left is the right one, but they found this, they call it the Magdala stone, which is carved stone relief bearing the oldest known image of a 7-candle menorah. Now, some of these, I think the one in the upper left, they said was a replica of what they found. They're preserving the other one.
Still, that's ancient.
Yeah. And basically they found... How
big is that? You can't tell by the picture.
Probably big enough to sit on. It looked like a little seat.
Okay.
But there were some bigger pieces too. But they found a first century synagogue on this site. They found 4 of the Jewish mikvahs. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. The baths. And ironically, our small group had just watched the season 3 finale of The Chosen, and that one of the last scenes is where Peter's wife is taking
Cleansing
a ritual bath.
Don't tell me I didn't see that part yet.
Okay. You got to watch it.
I'm in the middle of season 3.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So they found these ritual baths, and I couldn't take any pictures because it was really dark where the baths were found, but it did give you a sense. They're deep.
And there's stairs.
Yeah. So it sort of just...
Was there baptisms there, or were they just...
I think it was for cleansing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was for cleansing, as I understand it to be. So basically, they found a marketplace. They found everything that you would have in a city.
It'd be very Roman, I guess, baths.
I would think.
Roman.
I would think. So, so that was pretty cool. And then behind it is this place. It's called Duc in Altum Church.
Go out into the deep.
Yeah.
Go out into the deep.
Boy, that's impressive. Yeah, it means launch into the deep or put out into deep water. And it's based on Luke chapter 5, verse 4, where Jesus instructs Simon Peter to launch into the deep. So there's 6 chapels in this church, and it's basically dedicated to the women of the Bible. And this was a really amazing mural. Yes, of the woman with the hemorrhage. And again, I hate to keep talking about The Chosen, but that just brings the Bible to life.
I remember that scene.
And
yes,
do you remember that
was
episode?
moving. Yes.
That episode was probably one of the best ones I saw. So we had just seen that, and or maybe we saw it afterwards. I can't remember.
That's awesome. That's an awesome image.
If you can just see, there's like a little orb around where she's touching Jesus's garment, and that's when he can tell who touched me, and that's when she's healed because of her faith. And there was a lady on the trip from Texas, and she knew I had gotten a picture of this, and her husband overheard her asking me if I could send her the picture, which I did. And then she texted me a couple days later, and she said her husband ordered her like a poster of this photo, and it had just been delivered to her door. She really thought this was
that's
so
look
cool.
at that. Is so realistic.
But yeah, and they have pillars in the church that have different women of the Bible's names on it. So, okay, so we're good.
So, okay, we're good. Folks, you must be mesmerized by these things because somebody said your pictures are captivating on here. So,
thank you.
so if you want to throw out any questions, now's the time. If you have any questions for Tom and Linda, now's the time for this first half. And we'll continue here because Capernaum is a very important place.
Yeah. So this is the town where Jesus did a lot of his ministry, as we read in the Bible. It's a little rainy that day. So this is the church built on the site where Peter lived. So it's called the Memorial Church of St. Peter. And I thought this was pretty cool. Dr. Sri was telling us this is most likely the site where Jesus healed Peter's mother-in-law. And so Tom's mother has Alzheimer's and dementia, and she's in a nursing home. And so I really felt called to pray for her on this site where Jesus had healed Peter's mother-in-law. And I just felt really called
Great.
to do that. So it was really kind of special for me.
So what we're looking at is really where the homes were, right, Linda?
Yes. Yeah.
But
Foreground, you mean?
the foreground,
Right.
the foreground, and the church itself is built over top of what was believed to be Peter's house.
Right.
But you could kind of visualize, how the rooms were laid out, and this would be the foundation of some of the homes.
His
Yeah,
house,
Sue,
his
we
house
have a
wasn't
reason
nice.
to call on Ann. She's got something. Go ahead.
All right, Ann, okay.
Oh, I think a couple popped up. But one question is, how long were your days touring?
We would get up usually. Breakfast was at 6:30. We would usually be on the bus by 7:30 or 8, and we finished up by 6 and then we had dinner. So not. We slept well, but it wasn't. I wasn't
Exhausted.
I think we were mentally exhausted, but
Yeah, it was.
it was an efficient tour.
It
wouldn't
very
you say?
efficient. Yes, that would be the word. to
Another
describe
one,
it as
Ann?
efficient.
You said a couple popped up.
Yeah, there's another one. Arlene did you mention the mikvah is a pool? Is that what you were
Yes.
mentioning?
Yes.
Okay. She just went into detail about where the Nazarites would immerse themselves after the end of their vows for women to purify themselves certain times of the month. So
Yeah. So
Because they were sacred.
Yeah.
The women were sacred. Yeah. Oops. That's not what his house looked like, though, I guess.
no, this is the church built over the house.
Although you could look down.
Yeah.
You could look
so-
down into what.
Oh, there it
what
is.
was
So, there's glass. That's Dr. Sri. I probably shouldn't have intruded on his prayer time, but I did. So in that square is glass, and underneath it are the ruins and the relics of Peter's home. So,
One thing about Dr. Sri, he's a man of faith. He's not just doing a tour here.
Yeah.
right.
and we had one bus, and so we had plenty of time for him to ask questions and to talk to him. We were kind of groupies. We took our books that he had written and had him autograph them for us. And there was another national speaker there with 5 bus loads, and we said, I think we got the right tour because we got a lot of personal attention.
But he would sit down at meals with us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he got to know everybody, which was really pretty neat as well.
Yeah, very cool guy, and he lives his faith for sure.
Yes.
And so here's just a view of the town of Capernaum, and this is looking out from the entrance to the church, and then these are the ruins of the synagogue. And I thought this was pretty cool when I was reviewing my notes. This is where Jesus gave the bread of life discourse, which is what we talked about on the feast of Corpus Christi today.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Here's an interesting, and you have that one by Joyce there.
Right. Her question, her comment was, did you ever feel disappointed that so many of these holy sites were covered by buildings or churches?
Oh, I wouldn't say disappointed. Yeah.
No. Well, and how they explained it was, so many over the course of all the years and the wars and everything,
And destroying
destroying them,
Christian.
and destroying Christian sites, and just to be able to identify them and say these were the places where these things occurred after all these years is pretty remarkable. But it looks like it was kind of a private tour, but when you get into Jerusalem, there were so many buses and so many people from all over the world, and it was kind of a slow time of the year for tours. I guess it would be natural that they would build big shrines and churches. And
Yeah.
Where people can
different
pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To accommodate all the folks who want to go over there and worship.
Now, is Capernaum occupied? People live there? Or is it just a historical shrine site? I'm just curious. 'cause
Yeah.
We didn't
all these
see-
places
yeah.
you didn't see regular folks,
No.
right?
Right. We were, even where we
Because they're not walled off, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
So even where we were staying, it was kind of out. It was kind of, there were some hotels and things for
on
pilgrims.
the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there
No,
weren't.
I don't think anybody lived in that
Okay.
area.
Right.
Just
No.
showed you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they would,
Not like a lot of commerce
That's
there.
a good question. I never thought of that.
I'm
That's a
just
good
thinking,
point.
there's
Yeah.
all this land,
Yeah.
but there's not all that land. It's not a
Right.
very big place. And so you would think if there was places for people to live, right? But
Right.
there aren't anywhere.
Well,
That
we
was
didn't.
just-
We
you
didn't
didn't see it.
We
Well,
didn't.
you
I
would
didn't
have
see
seen
any
it.
houses.
I
yeah.
can't imagine you wouldn't have seen
No.
it. Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. We only have a couple minutes
Yeah,
left,
Yeah. So I'll-
but they are going to be back next week. So there's part
right.
2 of this. Don't.
Yeah.
All
right,
There's a lot
so-
to see yet.
We're just halfway through here.
Yeah.
lot to see.
Well,
We're at
no.
the
I'm,
Sea of
I'm almost.
Galilee.
I'm almost done. So the Sea of Galilee. This was an ancient boat that was uncovered and restored. We watched a little video on the painstaking steps they took that it didn't disintegrate. And then I did want to spend some time talking about this. We took a boat ride across the Sea of Galilee. We started at
Which the sea is a lake, right?
it's a lake.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
not a
lake,
sea,
yeah.
it's a lake.
It is a lake. Yeah. So
Fish, you could see the fish in it.
we saw a couple fish, yeah, and we had a fish lunch that day with
Yes.
fish.
Because there
and
were
kettle.
teams of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It was actually quite clear,
yeah,
unlike the River Jordan.
Yes.
yeah. And I think I remember somewhere. I think it was near Tagba, where there's 7 springs that feed into the lake, and that's where like all the fish are and the fishermen go.
Gotcha.
But I have to say, this was, and we had really good cell service over there. And I texted Rick Messina after this boat ride because I said to him, this was why I went. We would, be at a site and Dr. Sri would, give us a teaching, and then he would say, and would all be snapping pictures, and he'd say, okay, put down your cameras and just meditate and pray. And so after the teaching, we all did that, and he asked for silence. And so we were, crossing kind of at dusk. And then this is what we got.
Wow.
And when I
beautiful.
tell you I had a spiritual experience, I mean, it was just amazing. I just felt God that day. Yeah. Yeah.
What is that, a sunset?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just, yeah, beautiful.
I read someplace where they were saying how the storms that Jesus would experience on the lake or the Sea of Galilee, that how it sweep down through those hills. The winds would sweep down there, and they would have these really wretched storms would occur on the Sea of Galilee, and they were trying to explain how that happened meteorologically, and looks kind of calm there for you guys.
Yeah, it was. But I think it was the day after it had rained, so that's when you always get the nice light. And if my friend Brian from the camera club is watching, he'll know that's when you get the best sunsets, So
Beautiful picture.
Yeah. And then, of course, we had to do our groupie photo with Dr. Sri that night. So we only have a couple more places that I'll get to tonight. The Mount of Beatitudes, where Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount. This was a lovely little church and a chapel inside. And we had a lot of time to pray that day, and it was just so serene and peaceful. So that was very neat. And then this is the Church of St. Peter's Primacy. And of course, Peter had a special place among the apostles, and this was, designed to recognize him. And this rock that comes out from the altar is called Mensa Christi, Latin for Table of Christ. This is the spot where Jesus is said to have laid out a breakfast of bread and fish for the apostles and told Peter to feed my sheep.
Oh, this will be at post-resurrection.
After the resurrection. Yeah, I think this was the third time he had appeared to them after.
Yeah,
that was
after
very close to
John's
the water
gospel,
that
yes.
I remember too.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? It was
Yeah,
very close to the water.
It has to be right
Yeah.
on the shore. Yeah.
Right near the shore.
Yeah, and then we went to Tabga, the site of the multiplication of the loaves and fish, and again, this is a church built on that. This is one where I think they told us that there's some dispute as to whether it really happened here, but I think this is the place where the springs off of the that fed into the sea caused there to be a lot of fishes, and really pretty chapel inside. And so I just wanted to wrap up with this challenge from Father Matt. One of the days he gave a homily, and he said, rhetorically, he said, do you really think Jesus wanted, or God wanted, his experience to be just for the chosen few who could afford a trip to the Holy Land? Which, we know we're blessed and we were able to do this. And this is what he left us with. As amazing as visiting the Holy Land is, it is nothing compared to the opportunity that is available to us every day in the Mass. And talk about a good takeaway.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
thought that
Yeah.
was-
Which we sometimes take for granted.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, we do.
So next week, what do we look forward to? Where are you? What are you going? What's your storyline for next week? I'm assuming this was your end for tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the end for
So what's
tonight.
your storyline for next week?
Jerusalem. Basically, Jesus's passion.
Passion.
Yeah.
Right.
So if any third graders are watching, that's what they've seen. So I'm going to add some more photos. But
How different do you think you are now that you've been there?
you answer that.
No, it is life changing. It really is. Just amazing. And again, you see the images, but it's the feeling that you get when you're there that you take away. And but as Linda said, you don't have to go there to get that feeling if you just kind of envision, everything that
He's present here too.
Yeah, that Jesus did for us and is here now. So.
And you get to realize that Jesus wasn't a white Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Right. He wasn't a 6 foot tall white Anglo-Saxon. Right. He was a Semite. And that's a different culture than us. And I think you get a chance to grasp a little bit of that, especially in Jerusalem, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I've done the Bible in a year with Nikki Gumbel, and I had started with Father Mike Schmitz.
Sure.
And I fizzled out after about 150 days last year. So when I came back, I started again. And you don't read the Bible the same way, or we'll sit in Mass and hear, Mount Tabor or somewhere else, and just sort of nudge each other and smile, like, yeah, we've been there. We know what it looks like. It sort of just gives you a deeper appreciation of the story.
But you're right, Father. You get a better sense maybe in Jerusalem because we were there and little kids were going to school and parents were, the shops were open, and you think maybe not that much has changed over the years, really, in a lot of respects. So, I think we were able to kind of maybe get a better sense of what it was like back in the time of Jesus.
You'll join us again next week. And for people who are watching, maybe you didn't have questions tonight, but you'll think of them during the week, right? I guarantee if people weren't, I didn't think people were going to ask questions. They'd be too busy listening to you.
They were listening. I mean, I was watching this thing, and there's a bunch of folks.
You could get a job as a tour guide if you decide you want to leave the bench.
Pilgrim leader.
Okay.
Not tour guide.
It won't be a tour, right? It will be a pilgrimage.
Father, time for you to say goodnight.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for watching us. See you again next week as we continue the journey of Jesus, his time here on earth, and most especially, this will be extra special, his passion and his death, and the place of his resurrection, which was just remodeled, I believe, from what I gather, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. All that. So it'll be fascinating to see all that. So folks, thank you for watching us. Thank you, Tom, Linda. Appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
Get chapter 2.
Right.
Bye now.